I have started the recording. We are here today. Again, Heidi, that's me, Mark from the Wisdom Factory, and we are again together with Jessica Roemischer. We have done Friday evening an official Wisdom Factory show on Google Hangouts, and it was more or less at the same time where the things in Paris happened. And so we thought we would like to talk about that, not only because of this, but also because we were talking about the power of music and what has happened, the main disaster. I still hear the echo. Jessica, if you can put earbuds in, would be good. So as long as, I don't know, a little bit better. Probably you have to, no echo there. Okay, it's good. I still hear it.
All right.
Yeah, and we wanted to talk about this, the role of music and the power of music in the face of terrorism. The terror act which costed more lives was during a concert. So it was about music. And we heard somebody say it was an attack on music because these people didn't like it. They don't like this sort of music. And I think we have a rich terrain to explore today.
Mm-hmm.
So I would give over to you, Jessica.
You know, I almost felt that, and I wanted just to say how much I appreciate this follow-up opportunity to speak with you and to speak with everyone, you know, who's here. And is this will this be a video afterwards, by the way?
Yeah, it is a video. It is recorded.
Okay, great. Well, that's great. Mm-hmm. But one thing that I was thinking of in anticipation of speaking with you about what had happened on Friday night was to actually begin just in prayer for all the people whose lives were lost, all the families, all the friends, everybody who was touched, which really extends throughout the world at this point. So I almost felt that just to allow ourselves for maybe just a moment, a minute, to, in whatever way we would choose to do that, to actually enter a kind of prayerful state. And I don't think I'll say anything for a good 15 or 20 seconds at least, or 30 or more, you know. But if that would be okay with you, I think it would be a nice thing just to allow ourselves to let in.
Yeah, this is fine for me. And I think in these cases, if you then switch off your loudspeaker, because sometimes it's still, I would sing. So let's still have a moment of silence. And then I will bring it in my modality.
Ooh. Ooh. When there was the attack at the stadium, the people came out and they sang the French national hymn, and we wanted to show it to you. Mark, would you?
I want to make sure people understand this was not the concert hall crowd. I'm sure that exit was not disorderly there. This is from the football stadium. And we'll see if we can point this toward the camera.
And you must switch it on.
I think I have to turn it around.
Oh, I don't know. You're.
There we go.
Come on. Oops. I don't know if you could hear it well.
That, of course, was just a short piece taken by somebody who was marching out with the rest of the people. And it was the French national anthem, the Marseillaise, which has always been my idea of the ideal national anthem. But it's just so, and it was a football crowd, so it might have been much more easy for them to get into that spirit of patriotism that just, instantly filled up, everybody's heart, and they were exiting forcefully, strongly, in unison. And the music does that. It's wonderful.
Yeah. It was not such a wonderful music when it is sung like this, but it.
So one of the things that there were two things that came to my mind. When we were talking about this discussion that we would have, and what had happened. And the first one is protection, and the second one is innocence. And I actually this morning went to church with the woman who inspired the book that I wrote, which is called In Duet with God. And she's a devout Catholic, actually. And of course, France is a principally Catholic country, or at least in its tradition. And the priest at church said, people are probably praying at Notre Dame, which is the foremost cathedral. And Notre Dame actually means Our Lady in French. And as I sit here and speak with you, an image of Our Lady, because I'm here visiting this woman that I wrote about, is here on the wall. And she's cradling her little infant. And I didn't actually know that Notre Dame, which of course had been an image in my mind for a very, very long time, actually meant Our Lady. But I imagined the connection then between what it means for a mother to protect her child, for a whole cathedral to be called, to be named after a woman, and for these events to have just happened. And all these thoughts were running in my mind. And I thought to myself that the greatest casualty is really that of innocence. That when the people who were there enjoying their evening at the cafe, or were there enjoying the music, or were there enjoying the sports, or were there just walking outside in the evening, and looked like it was a beautiful evening. And you think about how simple that kind of enjoyment is, to just be with friends or whatever, to be out enjoying. And that terrorism and what happened was the destruction of that innocence. So innocence and fear cannot coexist easily. When there's fear, one loses the sense of openness that one has. And if you say that music is perhaps one of the most beautiful ways that people express and connect with their soul, then to me, the greatest music and the greatest experiences of musical enjoyment are ones in which you find yourself like a child again. And for Notre Dame to be named after a woman who gave birth to a child and protected that child, and for children, we are all in a sense still children. We all still long to feel that kind of innocence that a child is often more easily in touch with. But that for me, you know, when you asked me, Heidi and Mark, to speak about this, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity to follow up because it was such a beautiful experience to talk with you on Friday. That was the thing that came to mind, is that the most precious human quality is one of innocence. And we can reclaim that in the face of this if we try. So that's what came to my mind as I was thinking about this. We take innocence for granted. We take what it means just to walk on the street for granted, you know? We don't assume that this kind of thing is going to happen. Or if we sit at a cafe and we're looking at our friends like I'm looking at you, and we're just talking, we don't assume that something like this is ever going to happen. So it takes a kind of courageousness, and I could hear it in the music that you just played, Mark, you know, for me, that people were in defiance of the fear. They were in defiance of the I'm trying to find the word. They were in defiance of being controlled by what had just happened. And they chose to sing together the national anthem in defiance of what had, you know, of being controlled. So music is the most powerful way to regain a sense of who we are. And in the face of something like this, we have to go right for what the best possible thing we can possibly do to help ourselves. And certainly the people who were most deeply affected, you know, and the families and the individuals and the friends and the loved ones and the husbands and the wives and the girlfriends and boyfriends and whoever it was.
You are talking that we never expect that our innocence can be interrupted because we are living in times which are very secure. And when you are here in Italy and you see, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I made a periscope when we went through Narni, which is a city nearby. They have 3 rows of walls, huge walls to protect the city, which is on one side, it's steep going down to the river. No, on the other side is going to the mountain, and where it's not so steep, they have 3 rows of walls. So we had times, and it's not so long ago, where it was not so normal that we could be in ease going on the street. For instance, I know that in 1906, there were in the area of Viterbo, this is about 40 kilometers from here, it's a whole zone, agricultural zone, there were still 100 bandits yes. in service of one or the other patron. And they were there to rob the people who came by. So it's only 100 years ago in our countries that these things were normal, that you just innocent people, and you took the money, you took the life, you took whatever came into this impulsive or even ill mind. We call it ill today, but such a fanaticism is probably, as we know from integral theory, a level of development, which is a little bit, how to say, it's an insane, not insane, unhealthy form of this level of development. So just to appreciate it again, that we can live normally without fear in our societies, and that when we want to maintain our safety, our fearlessness, that we really have also to defend it. And you said that they were singing. And yesterday I posted on Google Plus that Verdi composed music, Giuseppe Verdi, in Nabucco, this famous choir, and this was composed for the people. They sang it on the streets to say, their opposition to the occupation of the Austrians. So music can have a huge role in creating connection, and even in a certain way fighting against the situation which we don't want to have. In that situation you showed, it was, as you said, to say, no, I don't want to be...
To defy control.
To defy control, yeah.
Good phrase.
Okay. Do you want to add something? Because we have to unmute, otherwise...
No, go ahead.
Okay, I unmute you.
So I saw that there's a comment, it was a very good comment, that the attack was on humanity itself, not just the French. And, back 100 years ago, something like this could happen, you'd never know about it. Now everybody knows about it inside of a very short period of time. And I think it's a great comment, because when I think about that quality, that precious quality of innocence, this is not a quality that's defined by, culture, gender, age, background, or anything. This is the deepest sense of who one is in the best possible moments. So I agree completely. And I think the only way you can really look at it is as an issue that is absolutely, completely an aspect of the challenge that we face as a total human species. That's the only way that it makes sense to me to look at it. So I agree completely. I think it's absolutely.
Okay, Mark.
Yeah, the universality of this is something I'd like to underline, because while it's true that, we knew immediately what was happening in Paris, the same day we had 40 dead in Lebanon, and they hadn't had such an explosion, such murder there since the end of their civil war years ago. It was overshadowed by what happened in Paris, but there were 40 in Lebanon too. Okay.
Bombs.
Yeah, bombs by
suicide.
ISIS. Suicide bombers, ISIS, And in a not directly related way, in Kenya, there was an explosion by the African version of this Arab extremism, Islamic extremism, and 147 were killed in a girls' school, So we didn't hear about them because we too are ethnocentric. We identify closely with the French. They're like us. They're our kind of people. They share our civilization, our past. We've been neighbors for centuries. Lebanon, not so much. Kenya? Where's Kenya? So this is another stage of our development too. We were speaking earlier that the gangster stage, so to speak, that can be so brutal and so absolutely careless of what happens to other people, that we have got past that by and large. It's still in us, we're capable of it, but we've got past that, and so we identify with a larger group of people. It stays with us, even though we have moved on to a more world-centric level. When times like this happen, we're ethnocentric again. We go down. We
But
think
here,
about the French.
Vivek says it is an attack against humanity.
Well, we realize that, but
Yeah.
but that's not our gut reaction. Our gut reaction was Paris, oh my God, people who look like us, whose history we
it's
share.
an interesting.
Wait a minute, I unmute you.
Thanks, Heidi.
Okay.
It's an interesting insight that I've given myself because I've chosen to put myself in a position where I'm sitting next to literally a very, very wide number of people of all ages and backgrounds and cultures and you name it. So, I feel that I think what you're saying is accurate, Mark. I think the challenge is to actually experience the reality of what's happening wherever it's happening. So, in some ways, I read a statistic, for example, 2 days ago that every 52 minutes, and that may even be 52 seconds, but it's at the least 52 minutes, somebody in the United States is killed by a drunk driver. So I was saying to my husband, I said, what if less than every hour, it's as if you could say there's somebody who is being killed every hour, one person, and that's not the extent of it. 5 people, 400 feet up the road from where I live, 5 people were seriously injured 4 days ago by somebody who was, these things are, the extent of human suffering is taking enormous numbers of forms all over the planet all the time. And I think when something like this happens, the challenge to me, it would be going, okay, what does it mean to actually begin to let in the extent of human suffering on the face of this planet and to start to take some kind of responsibility for it? And in whatever way one can. So I can't help but continue to imagine those 5 people that barely survived 5 days ago, 500 feet up the street from where I live, and whose lives will never be the same because somebody was intoxicated. You see, and that's happening all the time there. So these are the things that are on my mind.
Yeah. We have some fine comments here. Do you want to read it? Michael is directly responding to you. Ouch, Mark, where is Kenya?
I know where Kenya is. Don't worry about that. I was using it as an example. If we want to stand united, we must consider and understand the obvious, my friend.
Or at least try to consider.
Of course.
Yeah, sure.
Of course. You have to understand I was trying to make a point. That doesn't mean I agreed with what was coming out of my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And Vivek, didn't someone, Martin Luther King, say justice denied anywhere is injust everywhere?
Mm-hmm.
What we are seeing now is probably result of that.
Yeah. Well, I think in this case, I'm going to have to jump ship from my position just to make the other point, which is that we know about these things now. We have the opportunity to respond to them. This is something that is new in the world, to know about these things so quickly and wherever they happen. I did learn about what happened in Beirut. I did learn about what happened in Nairobi. I did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not something that's always been possible by any means. So
no, things were much more hidden when things happened, but now it's a global.
Yeah.
I would like to come back to the topic of music.
Sure.
What can we do using music? I yesterday sent out in a meditation platform, we musicians need to do our part, like artists and musicians. And what would be our part?
I mean, Heidi, I can tell you that in my work, what I described to you in the interview we did on Friday, where somebody sits with me at the keyboard and they experience like a little mini version of safety in a way that surprisingly seems really relatively rare for a lot of people. And what happens in that moment, as I described to you, that one girl, for example, who was abused, a teenage girl, and she sat with me, So in a sense, she was like a good example of someone who had really suffered, in her life. And what I saw happen, because she experienced for the first time a feeling of that she could be innocent again, is just so unbelievable. Albert Einstein said we can't solve the problems at the level at which they were created. So there's a lateral shift out of, which is a kind of leap of faith. So I don't have anything more sophisticated in some sense to say, except that in this little place sitting at a piano, on a piano bench where you can just fit 2 people, what I see feels to me like it holds a key to the question that you just asked. Because that kind of music experience is more than just being in a concert hall and absorbing it, and that's beautiful. It's actually finding the source of that music in oneself. And when you think about the children who are denied that opportunity to find the source of music in themselves, and that's not just to say that they're denied the opportunity to make music, it means that they're denied the opportunity to be children, to be free, to be in wonder at life. So you think of all the children, the child child soldiers, you know, all those children that are being conscripted into the most horrendous sorts of situations, or the girls in Africa, and this is, you know, goes on and on and on and on. And that's where I find my own faith, as well as what seems to me to be a clue, which is that in giving another human being the opportunity, the beautiful space. One person said, sitting with you, I felt like I entered another realm where no fear could hold sway. That for me is the antidote. I don't know what else. I mean, everybody will have maybe their own way that they could bring that kind of thing forward in their own lives for themselves and others. And if you multiplied it out a little bit per person, you know, in whatever way, shape, or form, then I would think that would be quite a force.
Yeah, Kate says beauty is truth and truth is beauty. That's the only thing you need to know. Who said that?
Oh, gosh.
I think it was William Blake.
Very famous English author.
Yeah, and then Vivek says, a disturbed person finds it hard to listen to music, mainly because music tries to get that person out of those disturbing thoughts. But if they are not ready, then they probably would not listen to music. Mm-hmm. It depends also what music, I would say, you know. Oh, yeah. Then when you are in such a state, in a violent state, music can even help you to get in there even more. It depends, you know, when it's a violent music, could be. Yeah. Music can be abused and used in a good way.
Plato insisted on only martial music was worth listening to.
Yeah. What has disturbed me, though?
These suicide bombers you're referring to, okay? In a certain very broad sense, they are submitting themselves to destiny, you know, not to any particular idea, not to some sort of religious vision of paradise, etc.
How do you know?
I just think this is a more general way of looking at it, that when you are at that level of development, the worst thing that can happen to you is to do something you're ashamed of. Mm-hmm. It's not a real moral stance, really. It's not right or wrong, but will you be shamed? Will you lose the ability to hold your head up in your community? Will you be shunned? Or will you suffer, you know, severe consequences just because of something you've said or something you've done? And this is a way to redeem themselves and reclaim, you know, as a martyr. My goodness. Martyr. We think of the Christian martyrs that we celebrate, you know?
That you want to speak? I unmute you. Oh, I don't hear you now.
When it comes to music and vibration, I feel that, you know, all of the categories that we tend to define ourselves and each other by are kind of thrown up in the air. And, you know, Don Beck, who, for anybody who might not know who he is, he's a cultural theorist and is very interested in studying cultures and being able to speak about cultures in ways that are quite unusual and enlightening. But one of the things that he said, you know, having developed this theory of cultural evolution called spiral dynamics, was he talked about the spine of the spiral. It's not something I've heard him say a whole lot about, and there's certainly not a whole lot in print, and maybe before the two of us bite the dust, you know, I should interview him once on that topic. But that's where my attention is at. It's at the thing which commonly is threaded through the entirety of human experience, human history, human evolution from the outset. And they even see it in animals. You know, now on YouTube or on Facebook, you can watch all these incredible videos of animals and music. I mean, that you never saw before, like birds and elephants and God knows what. You know, elephants in duet. I mean, you know, you name it. So the thing is, though, that I really feel very intrigued by what an open-ended sense of our potential and our nature actually is. And I feel humbled by the fact that I thank God and I pray to God that I'm not in a situation as we've just witnessed, you know. I mean, I live near New York City. I come down to New York City and I pray. Okay, I mean, this is like no joke. But I've been blessed to be able to develop myself where I could appreciate what it would mean to give that opportunity to another person, no matter who they are, to feel, you know, what I just described to you, to actually feel safe. And it's because of that, that my own sense of our categorizations, which includes mimetic characterizations, have started to kind of become fuzzy around the edges, you know, because things that I've seen I can't explain. I cannot explain them. So when we talk about people who are predisposed and are being conditioned to become highly violent and destructive, all right, that would be quite a study. You know, where did this person come from? They didn't come out of thin air. You know, they had formative experiences. They had a formative background. They had formative, you know, it just doesn't come out of thin air. So that's where I feel like the attention's at. You know, in the most fundamental human way, what were the formative experiences for these people? What did they lack that created a vacuum and created a momentum of pain and frustration and God knows everything that would translate into then something like this, you know?
Yeah, I agree completely that it doesn't come out of the air. I mean, even in our culture, when people become violent, you know, and I had experience with young people who I had here, and they were of this category. And when you hear their family stories, you can imagine where it comes from, you know. Mm-hmm. But I would like to bring it back to the music thing. Would you think, I mean, with your work, you do it already, but if we did this sort of work more and more, could we heighten the vibration? Could we influence more the field so that we can even reach with the vibrations, let's say, the people who, as Vivek says, cannot hear the music anymore because it's too disturbing for them. They wouldn't want to have quiet music around because they cannot, you know, I had this in my own experience with one of these girls, that they cannot tolerate peace and they need something to explode. So, and they couldn't tolerate nice music. But can we sort of from the back door, do we have a possibility to enter into the vibrational field and do something? Yeah, Kate says, of course, believe in it totally. That's what exists in Tibet and some other spiritual places. Mm-hmm.
You know, the fact is that every human being has a quality of vibration. And that quality of vibration when you really look at it as vibration, is neither good nor bad. So when I was speaking with you and talked about that 2.5-year-old whom I was in duet with, who was completely energetic and running around, and in most contexts, the teacher wouldn't know what to do. But all I did was I played on the piano the nature of his vibration. Okay? So at that point, you enter into a relatedness. You're not judging good, bad, or indifferent. Now, yeah, you're not. You're simply taking the vibration on face value. And that's what I've done also with people with disabilities like Down syndrome and blindness and so on. So I'm putting myself at the service of the vibration of that person through the music or the body language or whatever it is that they do. And once I enter into that relatedness, then something that can start to happen. You know, the great Teilhard de Chardin, the Jesuit priest, said, you know, we are one after all, you and I. Together we suffer, together we exist, so we are here, and forever we will recreate each other. So music for me is a way to enter into the vibrational field with another human being that is really unlike any other medium, because music is pure vibration. And we are vibration, and the nature of who we are and how we are is vibration. So when music is used consciously in that way, then a kind of relatedness begins to happen. And that's why people start to find themselves in this place where enormous, you know, changes begin to happen for them. Because they've never experienced that kind of relatedness. Alienation breeds violence, and violence breeds alienation, and so on and so on. It's like the most horrible domino effect.
Yeah.
So it's breaking that. It's going completely into another possibility.
For me, the question arises, and actually, I wanted to ask you that on Friday, and in some way I didn't. What, I mean, you said what you can do, but what can we do with those people who are inclined to come over and to destroy, let's say, our world without knowing what they are doing, because their world will be destroyed too, you know, when they destroy ours. What can we, have we a possibility to, in a way, to work with them, or even in a local way? Can we, I don't know, what do you see? Work with their children in some way? Go there? I don't know. Excuse me.
You mean raise the vibes everywhere?
Everywhere, and especially in these, you know, for instance, I imagine now in the refugees camps in Germany, in the also in the German population, no, there is an upheaval against that, and they are coming up, and it's who knows where this will end, and how can we little people, single people, what can we do? What can we do? I mean, we cannot go, or can we go in a Lebanese refugee camp where there are 4 million. Or not, I don't know how many.
Lots.
Very, very many Syrian refugees, and most of them want to have peace. No? What can we do? And this, I wanted to ask you more or less in the moment when it happened. This was...
Because you knew what was happening when we were speaking.
I didn't know that it was...
No.
Afterwards.
You didn't know at the time.
At the time, I didn't.
It was right afterwards we learned. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Does anything come to your mind in terms of the answer to that question?
Well, what comes to mind is we're doing this, for example. You know, this is what we know how to do. And we're doing it with the best will, and trying to bring our hearts and our minds together in a constructive way, and speaking with the people who are listening to us, who see us out there. So it's not, we're certainly adding something positive to the energy that is going on out there. How much that is, I don't know. If I knew more, if my heart was more open, there would be more effect. But this is what we are able to do right now.
Kate says we need to change our political system too. And what I think what we need to do is reintroduce, for instance, music and arts in schools in our countries. We don't have too much influence in other countries, but in our countries, it's going down and down and down and down. And we know that it is important. You know, that's yeah. And for us musicians, I mean, you could not go too well with the piano all around and play, but I mean, I could go and begin to sing for people, you know. Mm-hmm. I have my instrument here.
Even your singing at the beginning, Heidi, was beautiful. You know, at the beginning of our talk.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I can express my emotions in the best way. And you know, I know that my voice is breaking and it's not a performance voice, but it is.
It's a hard voice.
It's a hard voice. And I would like to do that too more. Maybe we should do Blabs. Kate, we should sing, and Jessica play the piano when we have found out how the microphones work best. And we do some music, just music without much words.
Kate likes the idea.
You know, I appreciate the political questions, you know, that are coming up and so on. I don't think I'm well equipped to analyze or comment on it, to be much, you know, to be honest. I just don't feel qualified to say anything with any sense of confidence. But what I do feel confident about is what I see in people when I perform or give them this opportunity to be creating music. And what I see gives me confidence. And I only just want to do that more and more. I mean, that's my own aspiration, is to play for larger and larger and more in places, in different places. Because I do believe in the power of that effect vibrationally and personally for people. I feel a great confidence and faith in how that effect would spread. So, you know, the more people that I could play for and with, the better. That's my sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate has many wonderful comments. I love the music you are playing, Jessica. I am in love with piano now. And before she says more feminine energy to the world and more compassion through music. Yes, music revolution. And Vivek said, agree, and feminine energy does not really mean female, but feminine. This is true. And Vivek, you said something else that I cannot go back now to. I don't find it. It must be here. It's so difficult here to use the comments. They are sort of disappearing. But you said that the problem in Syria is man-made. And what we heard lately, that actually, yeah, man-made, yes, but there's also been a big famine. You know more of that in this area.
Yeah, this has just become kind of clear recently that all the unrest in Syria came about after a long drought that the government did not respond to, you know, and people just become absolutely desperate. They've been putting up with this family for a couple generations already and not rising in rebellion. But, you know, when you get hungry enough and desperate enough, things start to happen. And it seems like this is a big item in Africa, too, because the Sahara is marching southward. and areas that were grassland grazing where cattle could range and so forth, and nomadic peoples could sustain a way of life, are now becoming desertified. And so this makes terrible, terrible problems on the southern edge of the Sahara, where the Islamic cultures of the interior meet the Christianized, more southern coastal edges of Africa. These people had been living together, in some kind of way, maybe not a great way, but they weren't engaged in mass killings. So things like this are definitely elements of what's happening.
Yeah. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just did.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think, when you speak about it in those terms, Mark, I can't help but just sort of scan back over the long span of human history, and to see that, what we're talking about has been going on forever in one form or another. That, violence seems to be a part of the human condition. And you're right that when there's scarcity, then the kind of pressure that puts on people. I mean, it's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, you're right down there just trying to, you immediately drop into what is going to make it possible for you to survive. That's just, but I mean, given the blessedness that any of us has, to the extent that we have it, I just think that there's something to be really appreciated for that margin of space whereby we can just breathe and not be as consumed, and to take stock of it and to be grateful for it. Every day I sort of wake up and I go, this is a new day, and I'm not, God has given me this opportunity. And it's not like life has been easy. It hasn't been easy. But, in whatever space we can find some space, some margin of some comfort in order to begin to look around and see, feel who we are, feel who another person is. I mean, Viktor Frankl, I think, did something that was beyond, when he wrote in Man's Search for Meaning and had been in the concentration camps, and said, he saw men give another person, saw a man give another person, he was witnessing acts of humanity that would seem almost beyond possibility. And that's when he wrote this incredible line in his book finally afterwards, where he said, everything can be taken from a human being except for that one most precious gift, which is the ability to choose how one acts in any given situation. And I mean, he went through it, coming out, and saying that. So I don't know, I always think about that, I think about what he must have gone through, and I think about him coming out and saying, there's this one precious thing that nobody can take from us. And Jesus said it too. He said, people can do anything to you, but he said, what ultimately destroys a man or a woman is what they do to another. That was the essence of his teaching. And do unto others as one would have them do unto you. So these are the things that I feel are like the seminal reflections, I really do.
Yeah. Yes, simple answer, says Kate.
Yeah.
And this is true. And I think it is a good answer also for closing. Mm-hmm. Nobody can take it away from us. We have the choice who we are in the face of challenges. Everybody. We have the responsibility for ourselves.
Each of us.
Each of us, and the others have the responsibility for themselves, although they often don't realize that they have it. And they try to give it to others, but this is also a choice. So, yeah, thank you.
Well, I so appreciate this beautiful friendship I have with you both and with the people, Kate and everyone who's on. You know, I just feel this wonderful thing. It's just kind of come up out of the blue. Because Mark responded to my pestering him.
I did not feel pestered by, I was sort of taken aback by your coming right out and saying what you wanted to do and saving us all the work of looking for someone like you, you know, to fill up a show. So you weren't pestering. I'm sorry. You'll have to work harder at that if you want to be called pestering.
Well,
okay, I thank you very much. And I would love to continue to do these conversations. We have to work out the echo problem and the microphone problem. And Kate, we will do music, okay? Online.
Yeah.
And who wants to join in and listen to us is good, and he doesn't want is good too.
That's fine. There's room for everyone.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you for persisting. I will get some kind of thing.